Hi, welcome to another Unity from Scratch mobile game tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to use a joystick or to add a joystick to your game. So I've got Unity open as a 3D project, and I've also switched over to make it an Android game. You'll know if it's Android or not because of this up here. Mine says Android. If you've got iOS, that's fine as well. This whole process and testing will also work in the editor, so you don't have to build it out to anything to try it. Now, what's most important about having it switched to Android and iOS is that in the game view, you'll be able to set the aspect ratio of your actual game. So you'll see what it's going to look like on the device. And in the game tab up the top here, when you're in a mobile platform build, it will give you a big long list of ones that you can pick from. So if you're building a portrait game, you can have it look like that. Or if you're building a landscape game, you can have it look like that. And that you might not get all of the aspect ratios that exist for your devices, but you'll find something that's pretty close. And now with the way that the new GUI system works anyway, you can cater for multiple different sizes. Anyway, I'm just going to go with this 580 by 320 landscape for the moment so that you can see it and it fits nice and neatly on this screen. All right, so to get started, I've got this little car. Now, I downloaded that from the asset store. It's free by Cactus Creatives if you'd like to grab a copy of that. And what you'll get in the assets when it's downloaded, so in the vehicles folder, it will have a Jeep prefab somewhere here, this green one, and you can change it to orange if you want. But that's really beside the point. Now, on this Jeep, if we just select it, you'll see that I've attached a drive script already. And let's just have a look at the code for that drive script. So this is the code that you'll get under the GetAxis link on the Unity documentation. And I always go to that and grab the code whenever I need to make something that drives with the arrow keys. And that's going forward and backwards with the up and down arrow keys and turning on the spot with the side arrow keys. So that's really is the best place to get this code, and you don't have to remember it then. So I like this. Now, all I've done with the code from the documentation is just turn the speed down a little bit because I found when I started driving my car around, it was going very, very fast. And in this case, if you use this particular car, it's really small, so you'll want to have small values in it. If you find that the car's not behaving like you'd want, you can change these values here. Now, also realize that they're a public float value. So when they're attached to the Jeep, you'll see that they're actually exposed. And you can control the speed in here. At this point, if you keep changing these values for speed and rotation in the actual script, Unity will totally ignore you. And then you'll wonder what mistake you've made and why it's not working. So what I do in that case, I actually do prefer not to have public things that have to be changed in the inspector when I'm in the code all the time, because I always forget that if you change it in the code and it's public, it doesn't get updated in Unity automatically. So making them not public is really great for me because I can change them in here and I know that they'll be changed. So if I just save that and switch back to Unity and go to the Jeep, you'll see that they've disappeared now. Right, so enough waffling on about that. One that's attached, let me just press play and I'll just show you that I can use the keys. And turn with the side arrow keys like that. And even with 2 and 30 set for those values, it's still quite zippy. Anyway, right, so if we go and have a look at that drive code again, we'll see that the values for the axes, vertical and horizontal, are taken from the input manager. And that happens for all the different keys and that. So even if you're getting like input.getKeyDown and input.getMouse, all that stuff is through that actual manager. Now, there's a package that comes with Unity that you can use for a really quick and easy joystick controller. And it has its own input package that kind of sits over the top of this one here. So there's very little code to change once you have put the joystick onto your game. Now I'm just going to switch back to the game view now. What you need to do is to download and install the package. So if we go to Assets, Import Package, and go to CrossPlatformInput, download that package. That will give you in Assets, an editor folder and a standard assets folder. It's inside this standard assets, inside cross-platform input, inside prefabs that you're going to find your joystick, and it's called Mobile Single Stick. Now that's the one you want to drag and drop into the hierarchy. Now immediately you'll see that you've got a thumbstick controller and a jump button there. So to start with, we're just going to work with this thumbstick controller. Okay, so if you press play at this point, the thumbstick controller can be moved and modified with the mouse as if you were touching it on the screen and dragging it around. But you'll notice it's not controlling this Jeep whatsoever. So we haven't hooked that up yet. Another thing is that if you press play and you can't see these items, they disappear, just have a look up in this top menu. When you've imported cross-platform input, you'll get this menu option called Mobile Input, and you can enable and disable it. If you've got it disabled and you press play, all of your mobile components and that will disappear and you won't see them. So make sure that you've got that enabled to actually test these things in the editor. Alright, so now how do we hook up the thumbstick to actually take over the driving of the car? It's really quite simple. Let's go into the Jeep and grab hold of the drive script. Now, instead of using input, we're going to use a cross-platform input manager instead, and that will automatically get messages from that thumbstick controller. So you don't even have to modify that thumbstick controller whatsoever as far as the code goes. It will just work this way. You can change the image for it, and I'll show you where to do that in a moment. But really, we've only got to change like 3 lines. So the first thing we need to do is actually put the library in at the top. So it's using Unity standard assets dot cross platform input. And then instead of input, it's actually cross-platform input manager. So let's just take that and copy it and put it down here for that input there for the rotation. And they're the 3 places we add this line of code. We put this instead of input, and we put that instead of input as well. So now the input for translation and rotation is going to come from that joystick. So let's just save that. And we'll switch back to Unity. Now when we press play, you'll be able to control that car with this thumbstick controller, which you can see I'm testing in the editor. And if you build this out and put it on your device, it will work in the same way. Alright, before we finish up with this video, I'll just show you how you can change this thumbstick controller, what it looks like. In the mobile single stick controller that you've got in the hierarchy, if you go down and start digging through what's attached to it, you'll find the image for the mobile joystick. It's a child of that component, and you'll see that the source image is actually set up and attached to it here. Okay, now if you select on that, it'll actually show you all of these different sprite images that have already been brought into this project. So if you create your own image, bring it in as a sprite, then you can use it instead of this here. So I'll quickly just show you how that process works. Now the current image, if you select it, it's actually a PNG and it's 256 by 256. So rather than upset things with a different size image, I've just gone onto myiconfinder.com and found an image. So I will drag and drop that into the same area as the other images. Now I'm in 3D mode. Now what that means is any texture that you drag and drop into Unity is going to come across as a texture. Now if I click on this texture, we can have a look over here in the inspector that the texture type is indeed a texture. Now the mobile GUI will not take a texture, it'll only take a sprite. So when you've got this image here selected and you go over to the inspector, drop down that list and go to Sprite 2D and UI, and it will set it to a sprite. There's nothing else that we have to change at this point. Actually, you could turn off generate bitmaps because you're never going to be looking at it from a distance. And let's click apply. Okay, now you can see over here it's changed its look. The black bit around the edge is now transparent because it was actually transparent in the PNG that I got, and it has a little arrow next to it where you can open that up. Now if your sprite is a sprite atlas and it has a whole bunch of different images, animations, whatever in it, there'll be more in there, but this is just a single button. Right, so let's go back to this mobile joystick here where this thumbs up sprite is, and we can just drag and drop that onto there and change that image. If I press play, it will now work the same as it was just before. Alright, so that's the cross-platform input controller. In the next video, I will show you how to hook up this jump button that also comes with it.